This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. Use the links in the description to visit their store. Hi everyone, I'm Nita Hone, and it's Saturday. That means it's time for Nita Notes, my weekly vlog series about limited magic. We are in the early stages of data gathering over on 17 lands, and while in this series I often like to dive into that data and talk about what it means, this first video after a format has only been on Arena for a few days is always a video where I give you some broad takeaways of mine about the format. It's hard to do super deep dives on individual cards, at least on a large scale, but I do think I've drafted the format enough to come away with some pretty broad takeaways about how it has panned out, and that's what we'll be looking at in this video. Next week, we'll start diving into the data, talking about cards I know at that point that I was wrong about, and what I got wrong about them. So first up, I want to mention that the Saga creatures overall are pretty good. Basically, for the Sagas to be good, it's like I said in the set review, they have a Chapter 1, where they have an effect that is big, that gives you card advantage right away. So even if your opponent kills it, you don't really care. So a card like Summon Fenrir, which I thought was going to be the best uncommon in the set, kind of playing that way, as far as I can tell. It ramps your mana, fixes your mana, gives you a card right away, and at that point, your opponent using removal on it feels awful, but at the same time, you put them in this predicament where they're like, well, if I don't remove it, they're probably going to get a counter and draw another card, even though it's also going to kill itself in 2 turns, and that tension is really painful on the powerful Saga creatures who have an ability that does something right away, and pretty much all the uncommon ones are good. I do think Summon Esper Ramu is medium. You do need to build around that one like I thought you would, whereas the other 4 are just good in like every deck, and Summon Fenrir is definitely at the top of the pile there. So the uncommon ones are really good, and most of the rare and mythic ones are really good too, but the same thing sort of applies. Like, I haven't been super impressed with Summon GF Cerberus, the one that surveils 1 and is a 4-mana 3/3. I had some reservations about that one going into the set, just because that is so underwhelming. So basically, if you can look at one of these and imagine that it gives you an interest trigger, just look at it as a regular creature with an interest trigger. If that already is decent value, you can sort of check it off, because from there, everything else is kind of gravy. Even if it does kill itself eventually, it puts your opponent in a bad spot a lot of the time. And, Summon Fat Chocobo at common plays like an uncommon one. It's kind of unfair that green got those 2, which are both really, really good. So both of those are quite good. The ones, like I said, like Summon GF Ifrit, where the enter trigger is discard a card, draw a card, like, can't always take advantage of that. It's kind of underwhelming. It never really has an effect that's really strong. So that one is really underwhelming, has mediocre stats. All of that hasn't really been great. But across the board, I'd say the Saga creatures are good. It doesn't really matter that they have this expiration date. I mean, it does matter, but because they'd be insane if they didn't have expiration dates and they just gave you those triggers, right? But it isn't that much of a downside on most of them. Most of them are pretty good. Similarly, the job select creatures, or equipment rather, which, give you creature tokens, are all pretty solid or better too. Those are kind of the set's 2 sort of headliner mechanics, and they both work out pretty well, which is not something we always see. Sometimes the headliner mechanics don't really matter, or one of them really falls flat, but these 2 really have worked out. It's not surprising that, the equipment that makes something to equip it to, automatically is good, especially when the stats are reasonable. Samurai's Katana is a pretty high uncommon in the set, one that I think you can really value. It's pretty great. The most absurd thing I've probably done in this format so far is cast Gilgamesh, hit a Samurai's Katana, put the katana on Gilgamesh, attack, get the trigger again. So, that's a corner case, but even without that, Samurai's Katana is incredibly good. 3-mana 3/3, trample haste is the baseline. And then later in the game, it's not a bad place to sink your mana, because it can make almost any creature into a threat. And they're kind of all like that. And some of them have overperformed, I think. White Mage's Staff is maybe even better than I expected. And I had it as White's 3rd best common. Like, that one has been really impressive. Even like Sage's Newliths, which I don't love, it's like playable in the blue-white artifact deck simply because it's an artifact. Even Monk's Fist, which is like definitely the most mediocre of them all, is solid. I don't quite think at lower rarities, I don't think that the job select equipment reaches the same heights as the saga creatures do, but almost every single job select equipment that gives you a decent creature is a good card, or well, solid at least, like a C or better in limited. They've all just performed quite well. They give you artifact synergy, equipment synergy, token synergy. All these things end up mattering. So that mechanic has ended up being really good. Very impressive. You can do crazy value things in it, like with Gilgamesh, or with an uncommon like the 3-mana 2/3 that makes a frog anytime you make a token. Like those job select equipments, in addition to just being a good rate, have tons of synergy in the format, work well with build arounds, do all kinds of crazy stuff. So it overall, the job select equipment is good, and again, doesn't reach maybe the same heights as some of some in Fenrir does. But like Samurai's Katana, for example, is great. And the higher rarity job select equipment is better. Although I actually think there are some more that aren't great, like, the Summoners one, which didn't look great in the set review. Hasn't looked great to me so far in the format either. But for the most part, they're pretty good. So another big theme in the format that so far works out pretty well in my estimation is the town thing. So again, this is, a format where all of these things are working, where your job, like the big mechanics and themes are working, is good, because that's just not something we always see. And, the big blue-green robot guy that comes down and stuns something is just an absurd card, like, a rare. It feels like a rare when you cast it, and you can ramp into it relatively easily. The ramp in the format, like, there are dangers to casting Prisha's Wanderings, and then the 4-mana one that can grab you 2 towns. There are dangers to it. Like, this isn't a format where you can always do that. Like, you're going to get run over sometimes if you do it. But kind of like Dragons of Tarkir, or rather Tarkir Dragonstorm, this set feels relatively balanced, where aggressive decks can be successful with the right draw, but so can slower, grindier decks. And a lot of that is, the green-based ramp town decks have access to stuff like the 6-mana 6/6 that gains you life, and of course the blue-green Signpost, which comes down, usually locks something down for like 5 turns and gains you a bunch of life. Like, I like that card in the set review. It plays almost even better. I mean, it is a build-around of sorts, but blue-green is already after towns, and green has plenty of cards to grab you towns, and so I haven't really ever seen the big robot not have a huge impact with its Inter's trigger when it comes down. So that deck has been really good. That there's a danger. I haven't seen it myself yet. Like one was already starting to see in the early days of Tarkir Dragonstorm. There is a danger of the format resulting in having a similar deck that we just saw in the last format, which was, the multicolor dragon deck where you have Dragonstorm globes and stuff. It's usually green based because you have access to the dragon that can be a spell that searches up a land for 1 green, like things like that. We don't really want to see that in back-to-back formats, but if it happens, it's going to be in these blue-green based decks where you have really good fixing and access to all sorts of stuff. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but so far I've been super impressed with blue-green. It's probably the color pair. It and blue-red are the two that I've been the most impressed with, and blue-red has been a little bit of a surprise to me. I was high on blue-green going into the set, but blue-red's even better kind of than I expected. I noted it in the set review where, flashback for 4, doing tiered spells, stuff like that will trigger these payoffs, but those, if you do something with mana 4 or greater, payoffs have basically all been better than I expected. A little preview of something I was wrong about next week. Like, for example, Sahagin, which I think I gave a D+2 in the set review. That's been way better than I expected. Point is, the town deck is really good. I do think blue-green and blue-red are maybe the 2 best decks in the format. Blue in general is super deep at common. It may not have the best common in the set, but it has a lot of good commons. Like, it takes a while to reach a common that you're not happy about playing in your deck in blue. So also, I want to say that removal in this format is great, even when it's kind of expensive. The best commons in the set feel like Sephiroth's Intervention and White Auracite to me, and those are both 4-mana removal spells. I was pretty high in White Auracite, because gives you mana back and whatnot. I was less high in Sephiroth's intervention. I compared it to Bake into a Pie, and I that similarity has been even better. I mean, even closer than I expected. Like that card was Black's best common last time we saw it. I think intervention's probably Black's best common in this set. Just gaining life and killing something is so good. But both of these really showcase there are some formats where 4 mana kill a creature's too slow, and you can't really do it. But both of these, and White Order Sight's even sorcery speed, are playing really well in the format. There are a lot of creatures that are like these great value engine things that you need to be able to kill before they start going off. Some of them at higher rarities, like if you let your opponent untap with the 5 mana 3/3 wizard who loves it when you cast big spells, draws you cards, makes tokens, like you're probably losing. And you need to be able to kill those things before your opponent gets value out of them. There are just a lot of creatures in this format that kind of need a turn to get going, and being able to deal with those immediately for cheap and flexibly, and then also getting something back is really good. So removal, like, it's been a while, I feel like, since the last time we saw a set where like the in contention for the best common in every color is basically a removal spell, because they're all good in this set because of how the set is constructed. And the last thing I want to mention, and I've kind of alluded to it already with what I've talked about, and that is that synergy is king. In Tarkir Dragonstorm, like a set we just saw, this wasn't exactly true. It was to an extent, but it was like 2 kinds of synergy, right? It was like, you're a red-white aggro deck, so you want things that pay you off for going wide. You want to be able to take advantage of mobilize, etc. Or I like dragons, and I like things that like dragons. Those were basically the only 2 synergy points that were huge aspects of that format. And that format was, a lot of it was just like a pure power level format because of the 5-color, 4-color dragon decks I was already mentioning. Like that deck was just like, oh, that's a powerful card, I'm gonna grab it. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't really, there wasn't that much synergy in that set, and it was unusual. This set has a lot of it. Partly, anytime you have a set with 2 signpost uncommons, that tends to ratchet up, per color pair, that tends to ratchet up the synergy in the format, and I think we're seeing that here. But like a lot of the cards that do the thing that your color pair wants to do, like I was just alluding to blue-red, if a card says, if you spend 4 more mana on it, it's probably pretty good in your deck. Like it's sort of straightforward like that. And if you're in blue-green, if a card says something about towns or lands on it, it's probably going to be pretty good in your deck. If you're in black-green, graveyard, etc. Like the synergy in this format is kind of off the scales. I mean, we've seen similar synergy before. Like I think the most recent set where we really saw a ton of it was probably like Duskmourn. Bloomburrow had a pretty good amount of synergy too. But synergy wasn't as narrow in most ways in those sets. Like in Duskmourn, it was like enchantments. Enchantments are good. The graveyard is good. Those are sort of broad strokes. This set doesn't have as much of that. Each color pair is kind of in its own lane in a greater degree than we've seen in a while. There's some overlap, to be sure. Blue-green and red-green are both into lands, but they're into them in such different ways that, one of them is like a landfall aggro deck, more or less, landfall beatdown. The other one is like amass a bunch of lands and cast big spells. Like, synergy is important, and it's something to consider. Power level alone isn't enough to move a lot of cards in this set. So each color pair really is doing its own thing, and I think that kind of results in what end up being overall like more synergistic, more powerful like value decks than we've seen lately, just in the sense that every deck, like as long as one color pair is not super overdrafted, it does feel like every deck can do its big synergy thing and go off in a big way, whatever it is, whether it's landfall, getting a bunch of 0/1 black mage tokens into play and casting spells, casting big spells, loading up the graveyard, whatever it is you're doing, the decks end up being good at doing it because there are a lot of cards that just don't overlap in a big way into multiple color pairs. All right, so those are my early takeaways about the format. Next week, I'll be back to start discussing where I went wrong in the set review, what made me be wrong about a particular card. That's always an interesting video because it's like a format update while also talking about the perils of card evaluation at the same time. So if you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it so that others can enjoy it too. If you want to catch future videos, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. And if you want to catch up on past videos, including my set review, some draft videos of this format, you should see a playlist on your screen shortly. Thanks for watching.